Timeless Tales presents a feature adaptation from the Jataka of ancient India, the Golden Goose. In a village at the edge of a quiet forest, there lived a family of 4, a mother and 3 daughters. The house had once belonged to a man who loved them very much, a farmer, patient and soft-spoken, who had died one winter of a sickness that took him in 3 days. The family had survived that first winter. They had survived the second, and now in the third they were surviving it badly. The eldest daughter was Kamala. She was 17, sharp of tongue, and the only one of the sisters who could remember clearly the years before their father died, when the larder had been full, and the fields had grown what he planted, and the house had been warm on even the coldest nights. The middle daughter was Nita. She was 15, thoughtful, careful with her words, and the one who, when there was rice to be stretched or a roof to be patched, found herself holding the other end of whatever work needed doing. The youngest was Amba. She was 10 years old, quick to laugh, and carried her father's quiet in her face the way some children carry their mother's eyes, as an inheritance that could not be argued with. By the third winter, the rice jar was a third full. The field, without a man's hands to turn it, had grown stubborn. The neighbors were kind, but the village was small, and every family had its own empty corners. The mother sat sometimes at the window in the late afternoons and watched the road that led into the trees, as though a help might come from it, or as though a memory might, and the daughters who saw her sitting learned to walk softly past her, and not to ask what she was watching for.
There is enough rice for 1 more week. After that, I do not know, my daughters, I do not know what we will do. Your father left us with more than this. But times have turned. I am sorry, I am so very sorry.
We should sell the field, mother. Enough is enough. We are 3 young women in a house with no man. Sell the field, take the money, move us to the city where there is work. This village has nothing to offer us.
But the field was Father's, Kamala. Father planted every tree on it. If we sell it, we sell him too.
Father would not want us to starve, but Father would not want us to leave either. Maybe there is a third path. Maybe we must wait and listen and see what comes.
That very evening, as the mother and her 3 daughters sat on the step of their small house, there came through the garden a goose. It was not an ordinary goose. Its feathers were the color of the morning sun on still water, gold and warm, and almost too bright to look at for long. It walked slowly across the yard and stopped at the feet of the mother and looked up at her with eyes that seemed, somehow, to know her.
Do not be afraid. I know you. I know this garden. I planted the mango tree you are sitting beside in a life you remember, and I cannot quite. I have been given a small gift and a small errand. I am allowed to come once a week for as long as I am needed. Each time I will give you 1 feather. It is gold. It will feed you for a week. Take it, use it, and trust that I will come again.
My husband, is it you?
Something of me, not all of me. Take the feather. Do not ask questions I am not allowed to answer. And this is the only rule, 1 feather per week. No more. If you take more than 1, you will find that the gift was always only 1.
The goose came each week as it had promised. It plucked 1 golden feather from its own breast and left it on the doorstep. The mother took each feather to the market. The family ate. The family repaired the roof. The family replaced the plow and planted seeds again and began slowly to rebuild what had been lost. For a year this was their life, 1 feather a week, 1 week at a time. And the family, which had been on the edge of losing everything, was, for the first time since the father had died, beginning to dream again. There were small joys in that first year of feathers. Amba was given new sandals, and she wore them every day for a month, even to sleep. Nita, who loved weaving, was given a loom of her own, simple, wooden, honest, and she would sit at it in the evenings and make cloth that the family wore and gave to neighbors. Kamala, who had watched the hardest hunger in the family most closely, bought herself a bracelet of thin silver. She did not wear it often. She kept it in a small cloth pouch, and sometimes at night she would take it out and hold it and turn it slowly in the light of a single candle, and look at it the way a soldier looks at a wound that has finally closed. They were small things, but they were hers. And the house, which had held 3 silent winters, began to hold laughter again, and the sound of a loom, and the quick footsteps of a child in new sandals running across a swept floor. The mother watched her daughters change, and she was grateful and she was frightened. She had known from the first week that Kamala was not the kind of heart that accepted a slow gift. She had watched her eldest count the feathers of the goose with her eyes while the rest of them were eating. She had seen her pause sometimes at the window when the goose walked into the garden, not with wonder but with calculation. The mother said nothing. She did not want to make the thought real by naming it. She hoped, quietly and wrongly, that time and comfort would soften what fear had hardened in her eldest daughter. But the truth was this: fear hardens only forward. It rarely unwinds. And a heart that has once said the words, "not enough," rarely learns on its own to say enough instead.
One feather a week. Mother, look at the house, look at it. We are still living in the same small house. We are still wearing the same clothes. The goose has enough feathers on its body to pay for a palace. Why should we take only one? Who told him he could ration us?
Carmela, daughter, listen to me. The goose said one. The goose said clearly, do not reach for the whole bird, not even once. Not even for a better life than this one. We have a better life than this one already. Look at you, look at your sisters. We are fed, we are warm. We have a roof that does not leak. Be careful what you call not enough.
Sister, please. Father asked us for one thing, one rule. It is the smallest rule I have ever heard. Can we not keep it?
You are the youngest, Amba. You do not remember how hungry we were. You were a child when father died. I remember every night. And I tell you, if I could free us from that memory with one afternoon's courage, I would.
The next morning, when the goose came and stepped into the garden as it always did, Carmela was ready. She hid behind the well. When the goose bent its head to place the feather on the doorstep, she stepped out, quick and certain. She threw a cloth over the goose. She gathered it in her arms, and she began, as quickly as her hands could move, to pluck feather after feather after feather from its body.
No, daughter, no, you were told. Only one, only ever one.
The feathers, as they came loose in Carmela's hands, did not stay gold. They turned each one to the ordinary grey-white of a common goose, duller than dust, lighter than breath. She plucked faster, and none of them turned back. In a moment the goose's body was nearly bare. Its cry stopped. It looked at her with eyes that were no longer golden. It looked past her at the mother who had run out of the house. It bowed its head, and it walked, slowly and with great dignity, out of the garden. The garden, after the goose had gone, was very quiet. A cat on the roof, which had been watching, stopped watching. A sparrow on the fence flew away. The sky did not darken and the wind did not rise. The world did not mark the moment the way Carmela expected it to. It was only a garden in an ordinary morning, with a basket of grey feathers on the ground and a woman with her palms full of what she had thought would save her family. The three sisters stood in the doorway. None of them spoke. The mother, who had fallen to her knees at the threshold, was looking at the empty line of footprints the goose had left across the soft earth of the garden, as though, if she looked hard enough, she could will him to walk back.
Carmela, oh Carmela, what have you done? What have you done?
They are still feathers, Mother. We can still sell them. There are so many. Look at how many I have. We will be fine. I saved us.
Carmela carried the basket of grey feathers to the market the next morning. She asked for the price of gold. The traders laughed at her. She asked for the price of silver. They laughed harder. She asked at last for the price of any feather in any market, and one old man took them off her hands for enough coins to buy a single day's rice. She came home with less than a tenth of what one golden feather would have bought her. And the goose did not come the next week, or the week after, or ever again. The family did not starve, but the soft, easy rhythm of their lives was broken. They worked harder than they had ever worked. They rose in the dark. They went to bed aching. They tilled the field, all four of them, until they had blisters that became calluses and calluses that became strength. And they learned in the years that followed a different kind of sufficiency, the kind that is built with one's own hands because the gift has been taken away. Carmela worked hardest of all of them. She rose earliest. She stopped eating first at the evening meal, pushing food toward her sisters when she thought no one was looking. She did not complain. She did not ask for anything. She sold the silver bracelet the year after the goose left to pay for a new ox, and she would not tell her mother what she had done with the money until the ox was already standing in the yard. She spoke less. She listened more. And slowly, over 10 years, the hardness in her face softened into something that was not shame and was not pride, but a third thing, the still, patient face of a person who is no longer running ahead of her own life. Her sisters loved her in those years, the way you love someone who has walked through a long fire and come out, not burned, but clear. Nita kept weaving. She wove when the sun was bright and when the sun was weak. She wove with wool in the winter and cotton in the summer, and once with a single thread of gold that her mother had saved, unspent from the very first feather, a small secret only the two of them had shared. That piece of cloth she never sold. It hung on the wall of the rebuilt house, and anyone who came to visit would glance at it and not quite understand why a single thread, no wider than a hair, could make a whole piece of cloth feel warm. Nita would smile when she saw them look. She understood. The warmth was not in the thread. It was in the memory of what that thread had once cost a family, and what it had bought them, and what it had in the end taught them.
Mother, I wish, every morning of my life, that I had not done what I did. I was not wrong about the world being hard. I was wrong about the goose being mine to empty. I was the one who made us hungry. Father gave us enough. I wanted more.
You were afraid, daughter. Fear looks like ambition sometimes. That is the trick of it. And your father, wherever his soul has gone now, would not want you to carry this for the rest of your life. Learn the lesson. Carry the lesson. Do not carry the shame. There is a difference.
Amber, for her part, grew into a woman who was known in the village for an odd, enduring gentleness. She married a farmer who was kind and quiet, and who had by chance been the son of the old man who had given Kamala the single day's rice for a basket of grey feathers. The farmer knew the story. He never mentioned it. Amber knew he knew. She never mentioned it either. Between them, across many years, they raised 4 children, and they worked the reclaimed land, and they did not grow wealthy, and they did not grow bitter. The village, which had watched the family's fall and slow recovery, did not gossip about them after the first few seasons. There are families in small places whose dignity in the face of loss earns them a kind of local silence, a silence which is, in its own way, a form of praise. Many years later, when the 3 sisters were grown women, and the mother was very old, and the house had been rebuilt with the family's own hands out of the old stones of the original farm, Amber, the youngest, was walking alone one evening at the edge of the forest. And she saw for a moment, in the last light of the sun, a small bird at the edge of the path. It was ordinary. It was grey. It looked up at her, and it bowed its head the way the goose, long ago, had bowed its head on the morning it left.
Father, thank you for all of it, for coming, for leaving, for what you gave, and for what you took back so that we would learn.
The bird lifted off the path and circled her once and landed again, and when it was gone into the trees, Amber looked down at the place where it had stood. A single feather lay on the grass. It was long, it was slender, it was brightly, impossibly gold. She picked it up, she held it in her hand, she walked home. And she kept that feather in a small wooden box for the rest of her life, and she never sold it, and she never showed it to anyone, not even her sisters, because it had not come for them. It had come for her. It had come for the one who had, even as a child, understood a thing her older sister had taken a lifetime to learn. Amber told the story of the feather to only one person in her life, and that was her youngest daughter, a small, serious girl, much like the child Amber herself had once been. On an evening when the daughter was perhaps 9 and the 2 of them were alone in the kitchen by the fire, Amber took the wooden box down from its shelf, opened it, and showed the feather for the first and only time. The daughter touched it with a single finger. She looked up at her mother. She asked, in the straight way children ask difficult questions, "Why didn't you ever sell it? We could have used the money when I was small."
Because, little one, it was never meant to feed us. It was meant to remind us. There is a difference. Some gifts are given so that we may eat. Others are given so that we may remember not to take more than we were given. This feather belongs to the second kind. If I sold it, I would have money for 1 year. If I keep it, I have the whole story for the rest of our family's lives. Which one do you think is worth more?
The daughter did not answer that night, but 40 years later, when Amber herself was very old and had passed, and the small wooden box was opened again by that same daughter, now a grandmother in her own right, the feather was still gold and still bright, and still the only golden thing in a house full of things that had been built patiently by hand. The daughter closed the box. She placed it back on the shelf. And she told her own granddaughter the story, that evening, by the fire, exactly as her mother had told it to her. There are 2 kinds of wealth in this world, the elders of that village used to say, the wealth that is given to you, and the wealth that you build with your own hands after the gift has been taken away. The second kind, they said, is the kind that no one can take from you twice. And the first kind was only ever a reminder that the world wanted you to survive, long enough to learn the second.
Greed ends the very kindness that feeds it. Gratitude for enough is the root of sufficiency.
Timeless Tales by AmtocSoft. A new tale every day. Subscribe and walk with us.